I'm curious, Suzanne, for our listeners, I'm wanting to move up in my career in this space and industry. What would you recommend for me as a maintenance technician wanting to advance my career?
And so I always start with that's also something I do quite a bit of career counseling. You wouldn't imagine how much of that I do on LinkedIn. But I always try to figure out first and foremost, what exactly are you trying to be and trying to do? Because there is organizations don't make it easy, but you could want to be a fitter and be the darn best fitter that you
In the
can
world.
be, and the best one in industry and the best one in the world, and there is room for that. So our aim with all of this is not to try to convert the fitter into an engineer, into an asset manager, into our aim is to figure out, okay, what do you want to do? So if you want to be a technical expert, then you can continue to develop expertise in your area. But I'd also say tie that with education. So whatever the education is that aligns with that. So for example, if you are a fitter and you want to do condition monitoring, for example, is something that would enhance that. Understanding RCM would enhance that. Ultrasound, those kinds of things would enhance that. If you are a planner, or if you are a fitter and you want to move to a planner, then you need to start understanding not just maintenance, but maintenance management, because those are two different things. So maintenance management is about understanding management systems for maintenance. So then you want to get into planning and scheduling. You want to get into the HR practices. You want to get into budgeting. You want to get into understanding cost centers and how the organization functions. So that is another element of it if you want to get into the management of maintenance. So that usually comes with some level of supervisory responsibilities. So then you also want to ensure that you understand how to supervise people well, because that is something that kills organizations quite quickly. Um, and so there are courses that are tailored specifically to maintenance management, and people should avail themselves of that, because once you get into that, you do want to understand not just the way that you've been taught through tribal knowledge, but you also want to understand the science of it, and to ensure that you're doing it right. Because don't forget, one of the things that maintenance is supposed to do is supposed to create the demand for new assets through the information passing through. So maintenance is supposed to translate risks. So what is going on with the asset condition, for example? What is going on with compliance? Why can't this asset comply with whatever standards or laws or legislation that it should be complying with? So maintenance is supposed to generate that level of risks and knowledge for the organization, and then create the demand to say, okay, if this asset looks like it's not able to go with us into the future, so we are going to need a new asset. So that kind of knowledge about asset information and preserving asset information in a way that it can then be used to make those kinds of decisions would be important. I would say as well, in my little perfect world, which apparently I might be alone in that little world, all levels of decision makers in the organization need to have some kind of asset management exposure. And in saying that, I'm not trying to make everyone a certified asset management assessor, but some amount of exposure, because anybody who is making decisions in the organization is spending money. There's
Mhm.
no decision making without spending money. And so you want the frontline decision makers, which are frontline supervisors and so on, to understand when they take decisions around stocking parts, hoarding parts, um, engaging contractors. What does that mean? When we buy parts that we won't use for 2 years, what did that do to the balance sheet? Where does inventory show up on the balance sheet? What is the impact? What does it impact? Do people understand how they impact the thing that we call cash flow? And the fact that we could be making a profit but have no cash to run the business and can't
Yeah.
pay anybody. And so everybody needs to understand that middle management, they're usually the ones making most of the day-to-day decisions
Yeah.
in the organization. So we're talking about your maintenance manager, your supply chain manager, your production manager. And so they're authorized, and they're also usually in charge of all of the resources. So when they're making decisions, for those decisions to align with what the overarching asset management strategy is, that is why we need everybody to be exposed to different levels. And then I'm not going to leave out the C-suite, because if we educate everybody below them, then you come back home from your training course, you run into a brick wall because you can't change policy. Only top management can do that.
Yeah.
You can't change how the organization is structured. Only top management can do that. You can't change the number of resources. We call it in HR. I don't know what we call it in North America, but in HR, we call it the establishment. So if the organization has 50 people in there, two fitters, two supervisors, you cannot change that without top management.
Absolutely.
And so, exactly. And so, precisely what I'm saying is every level of management in the organization, frontline, middle management, and top management,
Yeah.
needs to have asset management exposure, albeit to different degrees. If you're fortunate to have an asset management organization or an asset management department within your organization, then those are the only people who I'd say need to be certified to any kind of degree. But everybody needs some kind of exposure.